definitely was beautiful, but hard at the same time. Like, it is something that if I had to do it again, I think I would be hesitant about, but I would do it because I felt so good coming out of it. Like, my body, I could feel the change from what I've been feeling for the last 10 years. I think certain aspects were a lot harder than what I thought. The emotional side was harder than the physical, which I thought it was going to be the opposite.
Today on the We Share podcast, we're joined by Heidi Bluemel, a mother and business owner who was diagnosed with MS 10 years ago and has now successfully completed stem cell transfer therapy. Welcome to the We Share podcast. I'm Julie.
I'm Alex.
We share ourselves and we provide a platform for others to share.
We believe everyone has a purpose and a story to tell.
And we're back on the We Share podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Alex.
And we have a return guest.
A special guest. We revisited the episode last Wednesday, and we are back in studio with Heidi Bluemel, mother, warrior, princess, queen.
Warrior is,
yes,
that can't be highlighted enough. Warrior.
Well, she's just paved a way with MS and battling MS that is just remarkable. Yeah. She's inspiring to so many. And so we're so blessed to have her in studio today to share her story, pick it up from where we left off. So we want to find out, what has the last 2 years been like?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm already blushing here because you guys are so nice. But the last 2 years have really been a different scene from when we last talked. Mm-hmm. So 2 years ago in April.
Yeah.
So
in 1 month, it will be 2 years ago that we had to.
So a year ago in January, I was doing pretty good. And then out of the blue, I had a relapse. Like, nothing triggered it. We can't, pinpoint what happened. I just was getting, like, at the gym, after like 30 minutes of the treadmill, my left foot started to drop and my legs were going numb. And I had no idea. And they couldn't find a lesion at the time, but my doctor thinks that it was a lesion on top of another lesion. And so it was kind of
masked a little bit.
Yeah, hiding it. But so this relapse started to affect my mobility. It was stiffening my right leg. And from the waist down, I was like numb, icy hot, tingly, like weird feelings that you don't.
Did you ever fall?
I didn't like fall, but
just kind of
I would get like tripped up. And so I was labeled like a fall risk. And one of my doctors was like, I would feel safer if you got a cane. I'm like, what? Excuse me? I can't do that right now.
Well, do you mind telling people how old you are?
Oh, I just turned 37.
37. Yeah. So that would be.
But she looks like she's 24.
She looks younger than 37, and then to be told use a cane?
Right. And so it was because this April, I will have had MS for 10 years.
Right.
So I got diagnosed at 27. But the last 2 years, it started to progress a lot faster than like the normal 1.5, 2 year flare up. It was like, I'm not metabolizing my current drug right anymore. And now my mobility is affecting me.
So did you feel like you were switching back to like progressive form of MS versus the relapse remitting that you have?
So that's interesting because after 10 years, a large amount of individuals who have relapsing remitting turn to secondary progressive.
Okay.
And that's just where your flare-ups are just getting more frequent and they last longer. And so you're getting more damage. And so I think I was just how everything was laying out. And so in January last year, we started talking to my neurologist about different treatment options. Well, I'd already failed 3 therapies. And I wasn't metabolizing my current one very well anymore. So he said my only option was to look at a stem cell transplant. And that, like, just switching a DMT takes like 4 months. And then if it doesn't work, then you have to go back. And my husband and I talked about it, and we had heard of stem cell transplant about 6 years ago. But it was so new, and my babies were so little that I couldn't do it.
Right. You didn't. Well, and having also tried that new one that kind of took you out for a year and a half, it probably scared you. Like, I can't be out for a year and a half again.
Oh, yes. And it was a chemotherapy, which was stem cell. You have to do chemotherapy as well.
Oh.
And so it was a huge, like, if this is my only option, this is like a Hail Mary. Everything is like prayers galore, because didn't have an option.
Well, and much like we were talking about before we started podcasting, you're absent.
Absolutely.
It is you're void from your family for a long amount of time.
Yeah, you're in the hospital.
Yeah. So how the process worked is after I met with my neurologist, like February, March, then we started working on getting in contact with the location. And so the U.S. has a few locations around. It just depends how extreme the treatment is. Like, does it have radiation with it? What type of chemo? How strong, how long they keep you there. And we ended up finding Dr. Burt in San Diego. And he got me in it in May, and he had to do the pre-screening test. And he's like, yeah, you're kind of like on that border. Like, we will approve you if you come. But I would have to be away from my family between like 5 and 8 weeks. My trip ended up to be 5 weeks, which I'm grateful for. But it was from May to September, I had to get off my current medication. So I was on steroids every month to keep the relapse down. And then when it came time for October, I went to California. We packed up, and I was there for 2.5 weeks. And I was given shots to stimulate the cell growth so they could harvest it at the end of 2 weeks. And I had 1 round of Cytoxan, which is chemotherapy, and a drug called ATG, which is kind of like another chemotherapy, and Mesna, which Mesna helps coat your bladder because the chemotherapy can ruin your bladder. So that was just the first 2 weeks.
But your kids
let me
were
dump
with you
you.
for
Yeah.
that part?
Nope.
Or no?
Oh my gosh. I had to leave. Before I left, I had really long hair, and we chopped it. And then
your daughter cut it, right?
They cut it when I came back.
Oh, okay.
But I had a good friend cut it for me. And my cousin came and stayed the 2 weeks in October. But it was like perfect, right? Like we missed Halloween, and then we came back the 1st of November, and I got to stay home for a week. And that's when my hair started like to fall out. I was in the shower just washing it, and it just like came out. And so my husband's like, yeah, we probably need to shave it now. So we waited till the kids got home, and we shaved my head. And then a couple days later, I had to pack up and leave. But this time, instead of staying outpatient, I had to be admitted in the hospital on the transplant floor.
I watched all her videos.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, and I was cheering you on. And
Oh, I know your messages were awesome, but it's so surreal looking back now, because at the time it was like, okay, just one day at a time, just one day at a time. And my babies were staying with a cousin, and then they were staying with some really good family friends of ours, but we missed Thanksgiving too. So I wasn't there for anything. And it's just a lot. I think I have PTSD still thinking about it.
FaceTime, though.
Yes.
Like, that you could have video calls. And
it was hard, though, because I think the nighttime was the hardest, because I would FaceTime my kids to see how school was and see how their day was going. And then I just was trying to be strong and not cry in front of him, because then when I got off the phone with him, I just lost it. Oh yeah. Yep. It was everything. And I remember one day my son, we had FaceTimed him. He got a haircut and he wanted to show me, but he got hurt in some way. I can't remember if he like busted up his lip or something. And oh my gosh, the tears were right there, because I'm just like, I just want to hug my baby boy and tell him it's okay. And I'm not there as a mom to comfort him. But they were with some amazing people. So,
Angels on earth who helped you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean,
was Brandon with you the whole time?
Yes.
Oh, good.
So the only time he wasn't with me is after the 3 rounds of chemotherapy. I became neutropenic, and that's where you have like no cells whatsoever to help you fight off infection, bacteria. And he got sick. And so they wouldn't let him back in the hospital for about 4 days. So that was kind of like
4 really lonely days.
Yeah, like really
because you're just
bad.
alone with all the machines, and they're beeping.
Yeah, all the time, and you're constantly hooked up. Like sometimes I have 2 running at the same time, and the treatments are long. One of my treatment was 10 hours, and then the chemo was at least 4 to 6. So they're like long treatments.
Did you ever have a point in that treatment, like of the 5 weeks you were there, where you lost hope, or did you have low moments where you?
Oh, I would say I didn't lose hope, but I definitely.
I know that sounded like a lot. I mean, but
No,
where you're
I
like,
understand.
this is painful, and am I gonna?
Absolutely. Like, I think towards the end, because the first 5 days are like boom, 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 boom. Like I went in and you have 5 rounds of chemo, and then you have a break, and then you get your stem cells back. So that first week is like really fast, and you have a lot going on. Then it's afterwards when you get like really, really tired and really sick and worn out, because everything just takes so much energy, and you just have to be patient and wait for the cells to regenerate and to engraft into your bone marrow. That there were days where I was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's okay to be lonely. Like, it's okay to just sit here and feel all the feelings. But it was so hard, especially when Brandon wasn't there. The nighttime got really hard.
What did you do to fill the time? Did you read 800 books? Did you watch every Netflix series that's ever existed?
Every movie. But then I had a lot of friends who sent like coloring books and motivational books. I had like my diffuser, just to make it a little homey. So when people walked in, they're like, oh, it doesn't smell like a hospital in here. Yeah. My mom bought bed sheets that I could put on the hospital, and I brought my own bed pillows. And I had crossword puzzles and Sudoku books and, just little things here and there. But there's a few days where you just don't have energy to do anything. But they did make me walk the hallways every day, which was good. But still, I had to set a routine. Like in the morning, I had breakfast, took my medicine, then we had treatment. Then I always made sure I showered and took a walk and made my bed. But that was my life.
For 5 weeks.
Yep.
That's so heavy. I mean, I would imagine that you went to the place of just survival mode, and now when you look back on it, you're like, wow, how did I do that?
Were you able to watch any of her videos? Like she would update, and they were, for me, it was just like, oh, good. Now I know she's
just
feeling a little better, because you don't want to bug someone when they're healing. But
it was. I'm glad looking back that I recorded a lot of it, because there's some days like I didn't, and I wish I did, even though I wasn't feeling the best. I wish I would have, because trying to recall everything now. I think my mind is like, no, don't. We're not ready to go back there yet.
Like repressed a little bit of the stuff.
Yeah, but it definitely was beautiful, but hard at the same time. Like it is something that if I had to do it again, like I think I would be hesitant about, but I would do it because I felt so good coming out of it. Like my body, I could feel the change from what I've been feeling for the last 10 years, but just
so harder. So would you say it's fair to say harder than you thought it was going to be, but definitely worth it?
Definitely worth it. Hard. I think certain aspects were a lot harder than what I thought. The emotional side was harder than the physical, which I thought it was going to be the opposite. Because I'm not one who likes to like have like stomach flu issues. And so the chemo really stressed me out because I didn't know, like how your body was going to respond. And I actually responded pretty decent to the chemo. And I wasn't as nauseous as I thought I was, but it was just the emotional change that took me by surprise because I'm not really a crier, unless I'm like pushed to that breaking
You're
point.
You're probably just used to being so tough.
That's what I was going to say. You've been battling it for 10 years.
So you're like, I can handle physical pain. Yeah. I know what that is.
Right. It's just the emotional was like, and when you go in for chemo, it does take a toll on you emotionally. And so there were times that the nurse would come in and be like, hey, how are you doing? And I would just break down and just bawl. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm crying. And she's like, oh, no, it's okay. It happens.
It's a side effect.
Right. Yeah. And then I had to like be okay with myself crying and feeling that because I was like, part of me was like, well, this is dumb. Like, why are you crying? There's nothing to cry about. But then I had to be like, no, this is a lot. Like, you can cry. It's okay. Mm-hmm. So I would do it again. I think.
Well, and then let's just even fast forward to right now, today. How much better do you feel?
Oh, it's like night and day. Like getting over the hump and recovering, like my cells regenerating is tricky, and there's things that come up that you're like, oh my gosh, what if I'm getting like sick again? But it's just your body building back strength. But I don't have any more pain. My balance has come back. I can close my eyes and like stand and I don't sway. I can balance on one foot. I can walk a straight line and not look like I'm drunk, Mm-hmm. So the doctor, Dr. Burt, he took me off all of my medications that I've been on for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm down to just one nerve pain pill. And he said I can eventually get off that. And then I won't be on like anything. I've been on medication for years and years and years.
So I know you
even
said
prior
before,
to the diagnosis, you were on medication.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I know you said it's not curable, but what does this mean then if you don't have any meds?
I would say people who get HSCT, like they're looking at like 12 and 15 years now with no relapses, no MRI scans, like no trace of the disease. So,
wow.
And I think you can't say cured because we still have permanent damage from where the lesions are in our brain and spine. So to be 100% cured, we would have to wait for like remyelinization drugs to come out to fix that. But I feel so good. Like if this is how normal people feel every day, where you can get up and you can go throughout the day and get stuff done and not feel like you're dying by like 2 p.m.
And she's been cooking up a storm.
Yes, I have. I just like, I'm seriously jealous because I don't think I've felt this good since I was in high school.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tell everyone the ages of your kids.
So my daughter will be 13 in a few months. And then my son just turned 10. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis right after he was born 10 years ago.
So just so people can think that through, let's say you get 10 to 15 years of feeling like this.
She's going to get the best years with
You
them.
get to send them off to dances in high school.
Yes.
Whatever activities they're involved in, you get to show up to those and feel well. You get to move them to college. You get like all of the things a mother craves to do. There's a potential for you to feel well enough to be 100% involved in all of that.
Oh my gosh, which is mind-boggling, because there were times like the past 10 years where I'm just like, okay, my son's really active in baseball and football, but I can't sit at football games. I freeze and I am in pain. So how am I going to handle this when he's in high school and super active? Or my daughter is doing tennis and she wants me to play with her. Okay, well, I don't do heat really well either, you know? And how am I going to be around and be to her tournaments or just play with her? Like, I can't play tennis with her. Like, I can barely ski. I can't, like, I've given up.
I'll play tennis with her.
Okay.
And I'll teach you.
I would love to, because it's on my bucket list this summer. Like, so many doors have opened now because of how I'm feeling. And I am just so excited to get back to the life that I grew up with, that had to just be completely shut down at the age of 27.
Right. Heidi 2.0 just released a new version.
I'm really excited, but there's kind of a little nervousness in the back of my mind. Like, how long is this going to last for? Like, am I going to wake up again one day and have it be like symptoms flaring up? Like, so there's a little bit of caution.
Well, I think you'll build your faith and trust in it as you keep getting more time in it, but also like positive mental attitude. We've learned that. And if you were podcasting a lot, like listening to things when you're in there, the power of the mind is amazing. Like what we can actually do and overcome.
Absolutely. And it's just like, if you can't take 1 week at a time or a year at a time, and it's just like how I was in the hospital, taking 1 hour at a time, just keep reminding yourself, like, I can do this. We can do this. I can handle this. Just baby steps, micro baby steps, whatever you need. But it's very, very real.
Mm-hmm. I was just explaining this to somebody literally an hour ago. I was listening to a Black preacher on TikTok, and he was saying, we've got to quit living in our problems.
Yes.
Because guess what? That's a Tuesday. Like problems happen. And that's what you were experiencing. Noon is a tough hour.
Yes.
I'm going to make it through noon. Yep. And 1 o'clock's coming. And I'm going to be okay. And then 2 o'clock's coming. Yep. And if you have to break it down that minimal to hour by hour and you get through, you get through.
Yeah. And I think everybody, I was talking to a friend about like change and hard times and stuff, but everybody is set on, well, change is bad, or I can't overcome it, or they have this fear about it. But what if change is just for a way that you can say, well, why not me instead of why me? Like, why not have this change?
We've talked about this concept before, and like growth. You experience growth during times of change. And when I look back on things in my life that have been hard, I think if that didn't happen, I would not be where I'm at today because of things, you know?
Absolutely.
Same thing with you and Julie as well. Like, it just isn't the funnest when you're going through the hard time, but we all have hard. It's just different hard.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why you can't compare your changes.
Right.
Because everybody's change is different. The rate's different. How they are processing it is different. It might be like a similar circumstance, I believe, but everybody is unique on how they change. So it just, and this whole experience was, I mean, it opened me up to things that I'd never, thought of before or experienced before. I mean, like loneliness, like true loneliness. Like, I have so much empathy for people now who experience that, because I mean, there are some times where you're like, yeah, I just feel lonely, but there might always be somebody around. Like, it's a different type of lonely, but just isolation, just nobody there, nothing, like that was a huge eye opener to me.
Yeah, and if until you feel the feels, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Mental pain and anguish that so many have.
Mm-hmm. And for the first time being on that transplant floor, I was one of the healthiest people there, which was another like eye opener.
Was it just because of your age? Were you the youngest one?
Well, at Scripps, they put the stem cell transplants with like organ transplants and other like chemo transplants, you know? So like individuals who are like very critically sick.
Their liver is failing.
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and they have family members coming and like pacing the floors with cups of coffee all night. You know, I didn't have that. I had my husband in the hospital bed next to me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't coding,
right.
You know? But I was sick, but I wasn't like that.
Yeah, we knew you were going to come home.
Yes, you know? I mean, might be like some complications, but we can totally handle it. Like it was another surreal thing. So it's like, I will just take what I have, and I'm so grateful for it.
How's your family doing now? How are your kids?
They're doing better. They're getting back in the routine where, hey, mom's here now, so I'm not going to do my chores. So now I'm getting back in the routine of being mom. But my daughter and my son, I'm super proud of how they handled everything. You know, they leaned on each other, they supported each other, and just a deeper relationship between them grew, which I was so happy to see. But my son, when we shaved my head, my son had the hardest time. Because I was handing the razor, like my husband took a turn, my daughter took a turn, and we went to give it to my son, and he goes, I don't know. And so he just did a little part back here, and he goes, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. And we're like, it's okay. Like, we understand, like, it's hard. But my daughter was, like, all gung-ho for it. She's like, can I just shave more? Can we do this? I'm like, yeah, but then Dad's going to have to, like...
Clean it all up.
Yeah, exactly, because it's all over the place now. But coming out of it, my daughter got to experience, like, trust and resilience and... things that if I wouldn't have stepped away to do this, I don't think she would realize how strong she is and how much people actually care and love her outside of mom and dad. And then for my son, I think it was a faith building thing where mom's going to come home. She has to come home. And I just said, yes, I will come home. Like, we will get through this. It's going to be fine. And I think he's softened up a bit and has built that same resilience too, which I'm grateful for.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. He was probably afraid.
Yeah. Because he was just barely 10.
Fair. Totally fair to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
How's Brandon?
If I could
the perfect husband for
oh
you.
my gosh. Yeah. I mean, if I had to tell myself what I would go through in my life, and he's just been my rock through everything. And just to see him take care of the kids and me. And at this time, his contract was up at the company he worked for. And so he hasn't been working since July, and he chose not to go get a job so he could just be there for me.
Aww.
And he's my rock. And I think through all of this, there becomes like a deeper respect because you see what they're going through as a caregiver, which is just as heavy as what I went through as a patient.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe more so because he's the husband and he said, like, I'm supposed to take care of you and look out for you and make sure you're okay. But here you are in this bed and you're not okay and I can't do anything. So it's really humbling, but I wouldn't choose another partner because he just is so strong and so by my side through everything.
I think the life lessons too that you guys are showing your kids, like the things they've learned just from watching your love and then the resilience and strength. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
They're like definitely once in a lifetime lessons. And sometimes you wish that circumstances were different. But like you said, like, how else do we learn and grow? And
well, then let's even highlight, I mean, the first episode, religion, we talked a little bit about that, and that does play in right here 100%.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I've never felt so much peace at such a terrifying time.
Well, it's chaos and peace that reside together.
Yeah. And I know that it just didn't come from me, because sometimes you rely on other people when you're at your weakest. And I know that my prayers were just like, just please help me not throw up today. You know, when other people, I mean, I could feel the prayers, and I know it was real, because there is no way I could get through that by myself. Like, absolutely no way. It's by far the hardest thing I've ever done. And I could just tell a difference that whole time. And now when I'm back getting ingrained into my normal routine, you know, that strength and that peace is like still around, but it's not like it was when I was in the hospital. And there were so many, I want to say like so many tender mercies that I felt and that happened in my experience that just confirmed to me that it, you know, faith and love are a huge critical part of my life. And I know that's what sustained me.
Beautiful.
How's your business?
You know what?
People are still tan in Eastern Idaho.
Yeah, I've been there.
Been there when I'm not there. Yeah. No, I have such an amazing manager and support. She's been with me for 3 years. I just said, I have to do this. And she said, okay, go. We'll take everything over. Everything will be fine. And corporate stepped in a little bit, you know, to help and make sure that had everything. But she is a literal rock star. I mean, she's managed it. She's ran it. And she's like, I'm not going to bother you at all with work. But then I'm just like, what's going on? She's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And
look,
it's been great.
attest, I've been there, and they're doing a great job.
Oh, good.
I check in on them all the time. Yeah.
Thank you.
And she really is a sweetheart.
She is. And she's just flourished in her own managerial roles, which is awesome. But it's so good to be able to step away and trust somebody with that. It's just, I had the hardest time preparing to do stem cell treatment because I had to prepare to step away from my life for 4 months.
Well, letting go of anything is hard, right?
Yeah. It just, like, at first I couldn't even fathom, like, how do you do that? How do you prepare yourself? It's like you're dying, right? And I had to get, like, everything ready. And then I went into, like, freak out mode, and I, like, over-organized and started to remodel. And, like, I was painting baseboards. My friends are like, you don't need to do that. I'm like, no, I do.
Yeah, you're like my mental state.
Her form of nesting.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
a distraction, really.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, but like every detail, I mean, to go into stem cell, like I had to have like living wills, and if you want a DNR or not a DNR, because hospitals, man, they like, they want everything.
Right, cover their tracks. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's like, making sure all the businesses were in line, but then also self-sufficient, and all your bills, like business and personal, like taken care of and on auto pay, you know, and that people knew, like, I am leaving October. I will not be back functioning till like March. So, and it's not going to be a fun vacation.
No, it's a mini mission. A mission for your life.
Exactly. So that was a big thing too. But I also realized, like, I don't really need this in my life. And this could be a little bit more organized, because when I do die, or if something ever were to happen, I want to set it up So my kids are okay. And the business is better, So it totally different perspective now on things.
Yeah, you've got a huge jump on most of the population. You're like, I didn't really need that, but
right.
now I made the best of it.
Yeah. Well, we've crossed paths for several years.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
we
you
have.
and Alex have as well.
Uh-huh.
You look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
you. really
you.
do.
Thank
you look fantastic.
Yeah, we opened our businesses the same year.
Yeah.
2012 and everything. And I've known you through TEDx. And it's refreshing that people can see a difference because right now I'm still kind of like in the thick of it and my hair is just barely growing back. So I'm not feeling like myself, like my normal put together anal Heidi,
Supermodel
right?
Heidi.
Yeah.
So I'm not feeling it, but this is another eye-opener thing where this is a change, but my body has to go through it. And because of the medication I took and because of what I just went through and my body has to change. And it's another thing where I'm like, this is it. This is what I have to deal with now. And it's just going to be what it is.
So there's another one of your posts, like one of your videos, you brought up how the stem cell had completely taken away any proof of the virus.
Yeah.
So let's bring that up and just tell the audience, because I thought that was amazing.
Oh, the HSC treatment is phenomenal. I mean, it is groundbreaking right now. And what happens is you take chemotherapy and chemo completely kills off all the cells that could have had the mutation, could have had that just defect where it signals your immune system to attack itself. And so you just wipe out everything. And
it's like they went in and cut out all the tags on the clothes.
Oh, yeah. The good and the bad.
Yeah, the labels are gone.
Everything. And so the chemo wipes it out. And then when I got my stem cells back, they had already spun them and froze them. So any cell with that marker, they completely annihilated from the good bag that I was getting. So then I got my stem cells back, and then those cells now go into my bone marrow and repopulate healthy, brand new cells. So cells that don't even know what's going on. It's like a baby again.
Right.
And it's phenomenal because now my body's not attacking itself. My inflammation markers are way down, like non-existent. And it is the coolest process to be a part of. Hard process, but just the way the medical treatments are coming about nowadays.
The science.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, there's no trace of MS. Like, I have no symptoms. I still have lesions, but nothing.
But it's like she's been recoded.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so when in that first episode, and I want everyone to go back and listen to it, then this will make more sense. But we talked about autoimmune diseases being maybe triggered or created by trauma.
Yeah.
And your trauma was maybe when you had Epstein-Barr or mono.
Right. Back
school.
when I was in high school. And now they're linking Epstein-Barr to a whole different array of autoimmune diseases because it's just something that's triggering your body to attack and go after, but it never really goes away, right?
Right. And since then, I had forgot about it, but I've been to some medical doctors and appointments, and I have autoimmune too. And they brought up that it can even be like emotional trauma that triggers autoimmune diseases. And so many of us don't realize that something that happened when we were 5 that we held on to or repressed might be manifesting as an autoimmune disease.
100%. I've heard that as well, where there is a gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but I did read an article that said if you have any trauma before the age of like puberty, right? It can trigger the flight or fight mode in your body. And then when your body tries to grow and develop, it kind of gets like stuck in that fight or flight mode. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you think of anybody who's gone like anything, right?
We all
have something, but now how do we pinpoint exactly like the time and what that trauma specifies, So people like me who just got all reset don't get thrown back in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's another question is, I don't know. That's a lot.
Yeah, autoimmune is just a whole...
Oh, it's insane.
So and you might not know the answer to this because we're getting really deep into science here, but...
She's practically a doctor.
Yeah, I know. She stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, too.
Yes, I need that certificate, please.
So they say 10 to 15 years.
Uh-huh.
Is that because the old Heidi starts to resurface because you've still got those cells in there? Or is it just be like, why the time span of 10 to 15 years? What happens that then it potentially can come back?
So first of all, that time frame is set because that's the oldest study that they followed an individual that has had HSCT. Is like
so they just
12,
don't
15.
really know. It could go longer.
It could go longer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Dr. Burt, he's like the godfather of stem cells, and he's been doing it for like 25 years. And the success rate now is, I think it's like 97% where you will just be fine. But yeah, I don't know. There have been doctors who have told me now that I had stem cell, you can only have your childhood vaccines, but don't get the COVID vaccine because we've seen relapses with people who have gotten the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, just don't get the COVID.
I know, just don't get it.
We all know how I feel about that.
Just don't get it, please.
Yeah. So, and then I think that's the only and some food, so I need to be really careful. Well, and I'm anal too, because I'm like, I don't want to put that sugar in my brand new body. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want that pop. But like certain foods are more inflammatory than other foods, and processed foods just we have to be really careful of. And so there are things that people are knowledgeable about that I think after you have HSCT, if you're not careful, it could throw a relapse in. But it goes back to where autoimmune, there's so many, and they're probably linked together. But different triggers, like environmental triggers, and some of those you can't get away from,
Unless we move.
Right. We're all going to live in the same sunny, non-overly humid location.
San Diego was calling. No.
Yeah, San Diego. I just don't like the traffic.
Do they have you on a supplement regimen? Are there, you're completely off of everything but the nerve blocker.
Right.
Do they have you taking vitamin D and things like that?
Not yet, because they want my system to rebuild itself to like my new baseline. And then we'll see where I'm depleted. Obviously, we're in Idaho, so vitamin D is going to be a huge one. Yeah. But I'm on an antiviral, an antibacterial, and an antifungal for a year because my immune system just can't fight them off as well.
And you do red light at your
salon
now. So
yeah, so I have the red light panel, and then we also have a bed that does UV and red light combo that you can adjust the how intense it is. So, but what I didn't know, and I experienced firsthand, is chemotherapy makes you like sun sensitive.
Oh.
And to the point where I was like, when I went outside after a week and a half of being isolated, I was completely covered. Like I wore the gloves, I had a mask, I had my hat, and just like right here was showing. And it felt like I was burning. And this was in California in November.
Wow.
So
You're just hypersensitive.
Yeah, just to a point that I've never experienced it before. And
Has
it was
that
just
gone away or
a
still?
little bit, but I've been doing red light. I have one in the salon and then I have a panel at home. So the red lights really helped. I'm kind of cautious of the UV right now, but I want to get back to it because I know of the vitamin D and everything.
The help that will come from that.
Right. Just in moderation. But I want to be smart about it because I do know that there are medications and treatments out there that can make you photosensitive.
Right.
And I'm one of them now.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything further?
I guess it's just our final parting. Like, what is your one thing that you would leave our audience with today? You did it 2 years ago, but what message would you share with us?
Right now I'm focusing on being okay with changing, and being okay going through the really, really hard things, and gratitude, because we've had so many people, helping us and supporting us through this. And just a lot of gratitude, like more than I could ever repay anybody for. And then also just, it will be okay. Like, I might be uncomfortable in a couple situations, but I'm getting better and my life is changing. And we all go through that. And I think if we're softer with ourselves when we're changing and let the process just unfold, it's so much more beautiful than resisting it and thinking that the change is bad.
I like that.
I do like that too. I had a friend have a really bad pregnancy. She dropped below 100 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
She almost lost the baby,
Yeah.
everything. And that was a couple years ago. And after she had the healthy baby, because I didn't think it was appropriate to say anything until there was some sort of completion to what she was going through. But after she had the baby, I sent to her, have a lot of grace with yourself, because this was trauma and it will come back. And it might be in 4 years. It might be in 5 years. It might be next week.
Yeah, cell memory.
Yeah.
Yep.
And have a lot of grace with yourself because you did something really hard.
And that's so hard to do. I think we tell each other that, but it's so hard to internalize because we want things a certain way and we want our life to play out a certain way.
Because we've been planning it that
exactly.
way, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is
Expectations.
This is not how my story was.
And goals. And we're so set on like goals and markers and I got to get this accomplished. But life doesn't fall like that. And grace is really hard to give yourself. At least I've seen for me, because I'm like, sweet, I'm feeling better. Like, we got to get back rowing. I can't wait to get back to the gym. I need to get back to work, but it's not the time frame, and it's so hard. It's easier to be graceful with other people because you're like,
it's something about it's easier to be compassionate for someone else than for yourself.
Like, I can tell you're going through a hard time. Like, how can I help? Or what do you need? Or, yeah, I have empathy. I've been there. Like, I can understand a little bit, but it will be okay. But then I look at myself and I'm like, you are slacking. Like, this is not where I want to be.
Yeah, it's very obvious for Alex and I to look at you and go, Heidi, take a nap today.
Right? I'm just in awe, like, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just, and for me, I'm thinking that I'm like, man, I've taken a lot of naps over the last couple months. I don't want to take any more for the rest of my life.
Right? You're like, I got all my hours in. I'm good for a year now. I don't need to sleep.
Nap era is done.
Exactly. Like, I was in the hospital bed for 2 weeks. I don't, like, looking at my bed, I'm like, I can't do this. But yeah, it's just, how do we change our perspective with grace and change and, be better towards ourselves like we are other people.
Right.
We're all, I'm in the middle of it.
Well, we think you're doing amazing.
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
We applaud you.
Thank you.
And in 2 years, I want you back, and we're going to talk about all the successes that have happened.
Every 2 years, and her hair will be long.
Right?
It will
It's
be
just
long.
going to be, it's not going to be this, but it is super soft. My kids like to rub it.
I know. I secretly
Cute.
like. I don't know what it is. I like
just wanna
want to
touch
rub
it.
her head
Yeah.
like a little noogie. Like
You can
do
rub it because it's super, super
Like it
soft.
reminds me of my boys when they got summer cuts.
Yes, pretty much that's what it is. I asked my son last night, I said, are you going to be sad when mom's hair comes back in? And he goes, yeah, I'm kind of going to miss your little fluffy head. And I'm like, okay.
cute.
So it's getting better. But yeah, 2 years, I mean, the next 2 years, I have all the things I want to try and do. And I'm really just excited for it.
Any more trips to Italy?
Oh my gosh. Yes, because I do want to go over there, and I've been invited to go over and share this story with them, with my
great.
friends over there. So I just have to be healthy enough to travel.
Yeah.
Well, if you need an escort or chaperone, hand up.
Yes,
I
yes.
would happily
I'm really
go.
good at picking restaurants.
Yes. Oh, and you can't go wrong there.
No.
No, I think my daughter is like,
we'll go.
can I go this time? Can I go? And I'm like, I think you're old enough, and mature. She's really mature.
Well, and if you need Allie and I to go with you,
Yeah.
senior trip, graduate, she's going to be senior next year.
Oh my gosh.
So fun.
That's insane.
I know.
They grow up,
Way too
so fast. But it's this treatment, just to think back on it, anybody who has multiple sclerosis or an autoimmune disease, Dr. Burt's was treating like Crohn's and scleroderma, and he has things, he wants all the autoimmune diseases, could respond very, very well to this. And if you're having, your first initial diagnosis with MS or anything like HSCT, there's not a lot of information. You have to dig, you have to look for it and talk to your neurologist and be proactive about it. But this treatment has changed my life. End of discussion. That is it. Yep.
It's a great way to end.
Yep.
Thank you,
All right.
Heidi.
2 years.
thank
I'm
you,
marking
girls.
it on the calendar. We'll be back.
Okay, we'll be back.
Thanks for joining us today on the We Share podcast.
If you've loved what you've heard, please give us a 5-star rating. Tell your friends and share this show.
You can also follow us for recipes, lifestyle and fashion tips, book reviews, and more on WeSharePodcast.com.
Join our Share Squad and sign up for our newsletter there.
We would love to connect with you.
We share on TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, and Instagram. Give us a follow.
A big goodbye squeeze and sending you all our love from Alex and Julie.
Join us next week on the We Share podcast.